So, hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Toni Ann. I'm also known as the Downtown Speech Mom. And today we have Toni Tortora, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, OT and speech therapy, and why they are synonymous and why they're important to kind of think about both of those while you're thinking about supporting your child developmentally. So this is Toni. Toni, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody. My name is Toni Tortora. I'm an occupational therapist. I am the clinical director at the Rebecca School. And fun fact, I've known Toni Ann probably for about 15 years.
That's impossible.
Is that true?
It's probably true. When I started at Rebecca School, I remember being assigned to a classroom downstairs on 2, and I was very excited and nervous. And I remember the speech department director was like, "So you're going to be working with the head of the occupational therapy department?" And I was like, "Oh crap."
No pressure.
No pressure at all. But I feel like I learned so much in that very first year about how to integrate speech, OT, PT, and teaching like all together. I really felt like that was the first time I'd worked interdisciplinary on a team, and it made such a difference for every single kid. So I didn't look at a kid as like my speech case. I looked at a kid as a whole and what we could do to work on that kids program. And that I think really started the shift for me about why it's so important to think about a kid holistically as opposed to just as like what their needs are for them.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, and something that not everybody first of all, gets the opportunity to be able to do, and secondly, gets the opportunity to be able to do over and over again. And that's one of the unique reasons why Rebecca School is amazing, is that you get to work on as a team. And we know that we shouldn't know everything, that we should rely on our colleagues and get to know the different sensory systems from our OTs and the gross motor systems from our PTs and the speech and language and communication systems from our SLPs and the education from our teachers. So anytime you have the ability to work with a teammate, a colleague, somebody who you can learn from, that's the most beneficial. And that's why I love collaborating with you, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, am I missing something here? It's so nice to be able to like take a video, talk about it, even with like my own children and with like the children that I work with. It's always nice to have like a mentor or somebody that has a fresh set of eyes on a case. I feel like that is also something that makes a huge difference. I feel like as a parent, we like see things and we expect a lot of things from our kids, and that even from like the speech and language. The other day I was like listening to Max and I was like, lisp coming out of your mouth at 4.5? Don't love that. So take a little video, send it to one of the contractors and be like, "What do you think?" And they're like, "No, like you're being a little critical." But it's like the idea of like, okay, give this a little bit more months. Don't forget they can language through a straw. So having somebody from the outside look in on a case, I feel like is so important.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times when I see a new case, I'm almost always, I would say like 75% of the time, I'm always like, I would recommend a consult with an OT, because I feel like things that are happening in the mouth and the face are often not only happening in the mouth and the face. It's like you kind of see it in the rest of the body. And I'm thinking specifically about motor planning, but like a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, and that's true for, I feel like OT is the most referred to from all the related services, because of the sensory processing, the motor planning, the visual spatial processing. There's so many pieces that come into play when you think about language communication and being able to be an effective communicator and communicating partner. So not just making the sounds because your mouth moves a certain way, but what does your body do, and how does your body feel, and what does that look like, and do you want to make the sounds, and can those sounds be made based on your motor skills? So definitely when we look at a child and we look at who they are as a whole person, their muscle tone, their motor planning, and their physical skills also come into play when we talk about communication.
Right. And even their social emotional, like I think about like being in tune with your own body. I think about a kid that's saying, "I'm okay, I'm happy," and you're like, "Oh, you're not." Like, you look at your face. Let's take a look in the mirror and like think about where your body is in space, and think about, can they primarily regulate themselves? Can they like be in tune with do I need to go to the bathroom? Did I sleep? Did I eat? Sometimes my son says to me all the time, like, my belly hurts. You're hungry.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. You're not sick. You're just hungry. Like, this is hunger. This is primary regulator. Let's get you to eat something. And then all of a sudden he's like, I don't feel so bad anymore. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, no, my daughter woke up this morning and said, oh, I have such a headache. I can't go to school. And I said, well, you ate an early dinner last night. That's probably why. Let's get you something to eat, get you some water, make sure those needs are met. And then you feel different. And being able to communicate those things is really important. And then knowing what that feeling is when you feel it is really important. And that's why we pair those with that narration of this may be what's happening. We don't just do it automatically as parents and make it go away, but we talk to our kids about, oh, you ate dinner super early last night. Your belly's probably hungry. Your head probably hurts because you haven't had a drink of water in 12 hours. Let's go get something versus I'm just going to fix this and make it go away because I'm your mom and I know how to do that. And that's really important part of parenting, and also knowing how to support your kids and where they are developmentally.
Right. And I feel like it's so hard as a mom because, like, I've worked on this, like you said, for the speech therapist for a while, worked in floor time for a really long time. And then sometimes like, ooh, I just did for my child what he could have done for himself. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to beat myself up, but this is the one opportunity. And I'll state it out loud so my husband can hear it. And then the both of us can remember next time, like, he can put on his shoes. This is the process for him. This is the emotional experience for him. And how are we supporting him versus doing for him?
Yeah.
Really
and also giving yourself some grace, because sometimes you got to get out the door and you got to put the shoes on and you got to get going.
Right.
And sometimes you have to wait the 5 minutes so they could do it themselves, because that's what's important for them to grow in their independence. And it's always picking the just right battle, the just right moment. The kids don't come with that rule book. My pediatrician always says to me when I say something or I give him one of my phrases, he's like, oh, did your daughter read the Greenspan book? And I'm like, no, she's 15 months old. Of course she didn't read it. But he's like, right. So, like, move on. You give yourself that grace and you move on.
It's really hard to think about, like, to remind myself in the moment. So, like, when Max is playing or Teddy is playing, he's a little bit young, but, like, the power of play is important. And those are the times to work in those, like, moments of, like, okay, I can sit here and wait, I have all day, versus, like, we're on our way to school and I don't want you to be dysregulated walking into a classroom full of children.
Right. And
also that might be dysregulated because they didn't eat or they didn't get their way on the way to school. They didn't get enough movement.
Yeah. And one thing that Greenspan and the floor time methodology has taught me about being a parent is that time is, we think like, and it could be because, like, speech sessions or OT sessions, you get like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, but you could do really good floor time in 5 or 6 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you have. So whenever you have an opportunity to play and engage and just be there and be focused, use those minutes. Don't look for that hour block of time, because who has that? Who has the full hour to sit and do something? No one. But that 7 minutes getting your shoes on, that 15 minutes boiling your pot of water for dinner, that 20 minutes in the bath, whatever it is, use those small increments of time to engage, relate, narrate, communicate, and you'll see a big difference in your child's development, and they'll look for you. They'll look for you during those times then to be there, which is really sweet.
It makes it manageable, right? Like, our time is usually our walk to school. It's like a 20 to 25 minute walk. And we, like, make Max move his body on the way there. And sometimes it's like molasses. Today he's like, I want to jump on this giant pile of snow. And I want to climb up these stairs that are super slippery. But, like, it's about the time and the process. And my husband, Mark, walks with us every single morning. The 4 of us go. And so we kind of try to make it about the process, because we, like, try to leave super early, but I think that, like, moments are also like our playtime. It doesn't have to be just with toys. We think about that as our, like, time to interact and be together and, like, make the most of this, like, oh my God, we got to get to school by 8:30. Like, but that movement piece, I think, is also really important. And the idea that that interaction can be playful. And then also, like, separating it between both kids. That's also, like, super hard.
Really hard too, yeah.
And especially, like, you know, a lot of things I feel like I can tailor to both kids. Some of the things you just can't, right? You just can't say, like, my 15-month-old and my 4.5-year-old are going to be doing the exact same activity.
Yeah.
It's like a hurricane right now, rip roaring through things. And so we kind of make sure that during nap time, Axel gets his like play, enjoyable time with just one-on-one. And I feel like that's his best time. And so we're like, okay, this is the time to capitalize on all like the developmental stuff.
Yeah. For sure. It's tricky. It's tricky. And, you know, they're only little ones. So use that time.
1,000%. And I also see like, it's so interesting too that like everything is like happening all at the same time. Like gross motor development, fine motor development, and how that like is correlating to his like speech and the way his like mind is growing.
Right.
It's incredible. I'm also reading The Body Keeps the Score right now.
Well, that's a good one.
It's so good, but it also talks about a lot of these like mirror neurons and about how like the brain develops and like how like watching things, they can do things. And it's just like absolutely incredible to like think about like development. If you can show somebody something and have them observe you, then they can do it. You're like, this is genius. And Max is that kind of like kid. And I can already see Teddy like watching him learn from him. And I think that's like incredible how like everything kind of happens at the same time, which goes back to like why I'm also like, you should also see an OT just to be sure.
Right. Well, it's important because again, none of these systems operate separate from one another. So the speech and language systems and the motor systems, they're in and of itself the same. And we see different things and we have separate expertise, but in the end, we need all these systems to be working together to support the child in the best way that they can be. And that's really how Toni and I began working together, is kind of figuring out how when the body moves more, the mouth moves more, right? And how when the body moves more, the processing improves. It's amazing. And I feel very lucky that we were able to make that connection early on.
Well, I also feel like I always thought, you watch like videos and you go to these courses and they're like, there's only one way to treat apraxia of speech. And you're like, it is only like repetition, touching their mouth. And then, but I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's not only in their mouth. How can we treat it in their body? And by like actually doing like sequence and planned movements, you could treat apraxia of speech in the body first and then translate it to the mouth later. And these kids are all of a sudden talking with ease and like talking because they want to talk, not because they feel this like pressure to words and speech. And I feel like that for me was like the biggest like mind-blowing experience.
Well, what is movement? Movement gives you a lot of sensory input. And what does sensory input do? It makes your body feel good, right? The right type of sensory input for the right person improves their sensory processing, their movement, their motor planning. And then when you feel good, you want it to happen again. You want to communicate.
Right.
So instead of sitting at a table and someone telling you to say more 25 times, because that's what they think is important, you're in a swing and you're bouncing up and down and you're having a great time. And all of a sudden more comes, right? And whether it comes in a sign, a word, a gesture, an AAC device, doesn't matter to me.
Right.
That communication's there. And then that's when we follow the lead of the communicator and we keep the play going. If the play is fun and enjoyable, then you want more of it.
Right. And I think that for like across the board, even for like articulatory training, like sitting down, practicing your S over and over and over and over, looking in the mirror is like extremely stressful, I think. So like, by making it fun, like having them up and moving, people are like, but wait, what's your target? And you're like, my target is fun. The target is like that they don't see this as work. Right. That's my goal. That people do see this and they're like, what is that woman doing? Like, this doesn't look like speech therapy. I'm like, perfect. I did my job today. If it looks too much like speech, then I need to like work on the approach.
Well, yeah, I had a little guy this weekend that I was playing with, and I've been seeing him for quite some time. And he's moved beautifully, as we call it in the DIR floor time language, through his FEDCs. He started off at 1 and needed some work on regulation, and now he's at 5 and 6 and doing pretend play. And mom was in another room and heard what was happening and ran in with her video camera to record us. Yeah. Like, this is the first time he's doing pretend play, and his pretend play was all speech, right? And my focus is never all speech. My focus is regulation and engagement and fun and shared attention. And all of a sudden he got a piece of cardboard and made it a banana and an apple and fed the the princess who was hungry in the house, and we had this beautiful play exchange. And mom ran in with the video camera. I didn't pull out the video camera to be like, this is important. She was like, wow, this is something that we've been working on for so long, and here it is, right? So it's really cool. It's cool when the parents recognize it and you can connect with parents and they know the goals even before they happen, right? I didn't have to sit with mom and be like, that's a goal. She's like, oh, that's happening. Let me get my camera.
Right.
So it was super cool.
Well, I feel like it all comes back to that regulation level. And I always feel like in the before times, I always thought as regulation as like this beginning step. And then once you went to the next level, it was like a video game that the level was complete and that you did never have to think about it until someone once told me that I was working at the same functional emotional development capacity as the client I was working with in the video. And I nearly lost my mind. I was like, I'm at one? No, I am like an adult.
I am regulated.
Oh.
Clearly you're not.
Oh, wow. And it was so impactful. And I want to believe that the person that said that wanted me to have this experience. Like they weren't calling me out, but they were like, ooh, check yourself in a way that was developmentally appropriate for me at the time.
Well, also that's really important to think about too. If anybody on here is a professional and thinking about these different fields that we're speaking about, you need to have reflective supervision. You need to be able to have somebody who's going to tell you what you're doing needs this type of work and this type of support. And do you have a mentor? And that's really important too. And that's what Toni had. That's what I've had. And that's important. It's important to have those people that say, here's your video. That's great. But did you think about this? Are you doing that? And it's eye-opening. So a really good clinician always has a mentor and a reflective supervision process to their work.
I mean, it's kind of incredible. And I feel like a lot of times as parents, we are that reflective person for the kid that like, oh, you're dysregulated. I need to stop using my words. I need to stop thinking about all the things that we could do to support a kid in that moment. And I always tell families like the less you talk, the more your kids will. Mm-hmm. And they're like, but wait, you said the mirror neurons. And I was like, I know. Right. They're going to watch by doing, but by using less language and thinking about where you are and how that relates to another kid. I can feel, this past weekend when you had a Super Bowl party, there was lots of people at the house and everybody in the house came in super high. Mm-hmm. And like, God love them. All the kids were excited. Everybody was dressed up. Everybody had their friendship bracelets on. And I was like, oh, so like, who's going to be the regulator here? Because it feels like it's going to be me. And that also then now I'm dysregulated thinking about how I'm going to regulate 5 children. Mm-hmm. And 7 adults. And so like, what does that create? And then you could also see the chaos starting to swirl. And then like, I sat down and then all of a sudden they were all sitting with me. And I was like, I know this.
Yeah.
Toni taught me this one too. If you sit, they will sit. Mm-hmm. If you're quiet, they will be quiet. Mm-hmm. I was like, wait, what do you mean? It's kind of crazy that like just regulating yourself and not thinking about other people will then regulate everybody else in the space.
Yeah, it's really about your energy and what you're bringing to the interaction too. It's an important part of it. And what you said there about the reflective piece, if anybody checks out ISCDL, their website, all these capacities are on there if anybody wants to see them. Important to remember and to think about that when we're talking about working with students, working as an OT or an SLP, or even parenting, we are expected to think reflectively, right? Those are those higher capacities, 7, 8, 9, and above. They go up to 16. So if we're constantly being reflective and thinking, it's a lot of work for us.
Right.
It's a lot of work for us. And being regulated and making sure that we take time for ourselves to be regulated is really important. We know to sit, right? When we sit and we ground ourselves, our kids usually follow along. If I know I have a really tough kid or something that's really stressful happening, even at home or at work, I usually put a little extra ice in my water cup, or I chew on some ice because that's regulating for me. So really understanding who you are, knowing yourself as a parent and a clinician is also huge. We can only be that good of a parent and clinician if we are regulated and able to feel good about ourselves.
Right. It's like putting on your mask before you can assist others. And you're like, well, if you're passed out, how are you going to put the mask on your kid? And I feel like that's sometimes like the hardest part of parenting. And I feel like that's one of my like biggest tips to families when they're like, how do I get my kid to talk? And I'm like, be as relaxed and as chill as you can be.
Right.
Like, don't worry about modeling and filling their whole life with activities and toys and books and everything else. Like sometimes just being will give better results.
Yeah.
It seems crazy.
And why is that? Because when our senses are overloaded, whether it be our kids or ourselves, then communication doesn't come easily. And think about that. When you're stressed out, you can't communicate. You can't find the words. You are flustered. Your stomach starts to hurt. All of these signs that come from internally inside of you, that's your sensory processing. That's your interoception. And if you feel good and you're calm and you have your iced water and your cup of coffee and you've already exercised your day, those are my regulators. Then when you're communicating with people, your thoughts are more fluid. You can have more conversations. You could think at this higher level on that reflective thinking piece. A child who's having difficulty integrating their sensory systems has more difficulty communicating, has more difficulty motor planning. So really focusing on that regulation piece is key in that first step.
Of course. I think a lot of, I go into a lot of schools and a lot of daycares, and a lot of teachers will always say like, oh, when they have hit another kid or they are having a hard time, like that's, they're not able to communicate in a way that's like functional. And like, that's our concern. And it's like, well, that's my concern too, but let's address the regulatory piece.
Here's a secret. Want to hear a secret?
Yeah, I love a good secret.
Don't ever work on the thing you're working on. Right?
Right.
Because that's not a bottom-up approach. That's a top-down approach.
Right.
If you really want to support articulation, if you really want to support handwriting, if you really want to support getting dressed and your ADL skills, don't work on them. Work on sensory processing, engagement, relating, all of those pieces. That developmental work is much more important and beneficial in the long run than teaching a kid by rote memory how to put their shirt on, or how to hold a pencil. Work on that strengthening, work on that upper body play and bear walk and crawl and move. And all of a sudden one day you'll be like, oh, wow, that kid put on a shirt. Wait, that was my first goal.
Right.
How did we get here? But that's true. It's true. If you start working on the thing that you're supposed to be working on, you're missing a couple underlying steps, and it's going to be a lot harder to get there.
Right. And then also I feel like just engaging a child, like keeping them constantly like their mind thinking and moving, I think is also really good. So like an engaged child is one that's like thinking and moving dynamically and like communicating and that has the opportunity to do that, as opposed to saying like, well, like, let's watch this video, or like go play quietly by yourself. Like thinking about like, how do I strengthen their thoughts and ideas so that they can then have bigger thoughts and ideas. So like constantly keeping them active of like, oh, hey, like let's listen to this audiobook. We're very into the Yodo at our house right now. The Yodo that we're obsessed with is The Invention of the Toilet.
Oh.
4.5. Oops, hysterical. But it's all about this. They tell a story about how the toilet was invented in the 1800s. But it's like really cool. Max would like to sit down and listen to it, and then he wants to talk about it and then like create a toilet that he could like flush. And I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna do this, but like he'll get Play-Doh out and kind of like make a hole. But it's just like super interesting that like the two of us can kind of do that while I'm making dinner, or he's in the bathtub and he's like, well, here's a whole big vat of water that I can use. How could I make a tube? He took those tubey things from Target that are like $10 for like 50 of them. Yeah. And like made a tube and like shaped it like the tube on the toilet. And I was like, this is smart. But like keeping his mind moving is what's getting him from A to B.
And when you're thinking about what's happening listening to audiobooks, you have to create pictures in your head of what's happening because you don't have a picture in front of you. And reading books is great, and that's fine too, but this is different, right? And you can think about things differently and not only can read books that have pictures and only listen to audiobooks. Like let's do whatever works for our kids and knowing our kids. But when you're listening to an audiobook, you have to create pictures in your head in order for it to make sense. And that's really supportive of comprehension and understanding a story. So being able to play something out that you've heard means that you've created a picture and now you're using your motor planning to strengthen that, which is really important.
I mean, it's kind of incredible. Like the human brain, like always amazes me. Like, who taught you that? I never taught him how to do that. I never taught him how to be like, okay, hold the picture. What do you think a toilet looks like? But his brain just kind of naturally like learned how to do that. And it's kind of like using these like synapses to like think dynamically and differently by like the experiences that he's had with a toilet. Like the toilet at school is really small. And the toilet at home is really big. He needs a step stool. And just like, it's just kind of cool how these like different experiences like have shaped the way he thinks. And like, now we're talking about toilets all the time at our house. Like, but it's like kind of developmentally cool. Like,
of course,
it gives us this like thing to talk about that I know that he's interested in. That's kind of this weird interest, but like it's keeping his brain moving. It's keeping him from hitting his brother. It's keeping him from losing his mind about not having the exact meal that he wanted for dinner, or about how he has only 5 more minutes of playtime before bath. So by keeping his brain moving in like a way that he feels like safe and secure in, helps him then organize his thoughts and ideas.
Well, and play. Parents always want to talk about frustration tolerance and how to build flexibility in their kids' thinking and their kids' routines. This is how you do it. You allow for play and playing out different scenarios and different ways of endings and different way things happen. And that's how you build frustration tolerance. You don't build frustration tolerance by being frustrated and waiting it. You build it by being in a supportive play environment where you built the toilet the first time and the tube didn't connect to the wall, and now you got to do it again. And you're having a great time because you love toilets and you love tubes and you love this audiobook. So now I'm going to figure out a new way to do it. And not because I'm frustrated, but because I'm motivated. Right. And that is how you build your frustration tolerance muscle and your flexibility muscle. It's not by being in a frustrated place for a long period of time.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Like, a lot of good work that like can make everybody feel good. Like at the end of the day, I feel like, okay, I had some really good quality time with Max talking about toilets and like thinking about like different things like, oh, what do you think the toilet looks like at Disney World? What do you think the toilet looks like at grandma's house? How many toilets are in our house? And so like, it's a way to build that tolerance in a way that's fun and not like I am now becoming dysregulated because you're so dysregulated and everybody's losing frustration. And I feel like the time to do it is at home.
Yeah, and when my kids we used to have a pretty long car ride between grandma's house and our house, and we did it quite often. And the kids, sometimes they were little and they'd get frustrated in the car. And what did we do? We started calling out the different houses and different types of houses we passed, and we'd make a game of, is that where grandma lives? No, that house is too small, or that house has a red door, grandma's house. And we'd drive past and be like, that one's grandma's house. And my kids would crack up then. They'd be hysterical laughing and looking at the houses being like, no, grandma lives in a brown house. That house is a white house. Or and then we'd start calling out other people's houses, right? And that, again, that builds that internal visual memory of them thinking about, what does grandma's house actually look like? And how can I tell the difference between grandma's house and another house? Am I in the right neighborhood? And when I pass this block, it means we're close to grandma's house, but that house isn't grandma's house. And just having those conversations really help to support that regulatory piece of waiting and frustration. And the more laughing and fun we're having while we're doing it, the more it's going to stick with us. And that developmental sequence is going to be coded and last with us longer.
Oh, I love it. I always think about, I was at the speech conference in Seattle this past December, and Max got on FaceTime and he's like, where are you? Are you in North America? What? Who taught you that? Yeah. And the teachers had like sent home a picture at the end of the week that they were studying the picture of the globe.
Oh,
look at you making that connection. Like he's also trying to like visualize like his community and his world. And I always say to my husband, like, oh, where are you going? North America? Where are we going? In North America? Or is that in Pennsylvania? Like, where are you going? And like thinking about that abstractly is kind of insane, but I like your game idea of thinking about where can I go next, and that everything can be a game. Literally everything. And then
we're parents and we're supposed to discipline and we want to discipline, but at the end of the day, disciplining is not that much fun, right? And there are rules and there are consequences, but if you don't have to get in the power struggle, don't do it. right? Our kids are going to learn to be carefree, good-spirited people if they can find a little bit of light in things and play a little bit more and have fun while being frustrated and knowing that you're there with them while they're frustrated. That's okay. Right now, my kids are very big into the weather and what's happening where. So upstate New York, is it snowing when it's snowing here? And if it's snowing here in Long Island, then is it snowing in Queens where grandma lives?
Right.
And it's very much that's what we're trying to figure out. Like when this happens, who does it affect? And weather is weird. There's no like black and white answer. Sometimes it snows in Queens and doesn't snow in Long Island and vice versa. And it's a little bit same for me at 41 years old. It's a little bit like, like why isn't it snowing down the block and it's snowing right here? But it's uncontrollable, unpredictable. One of the little girls that I see on the weekends, she's big on wind, and wind is really scary and the sound is really scary and I don't want to go outside in the wind. And she's able to communicate those things to me, and still I'm not doing it. So how do we play through that? And we have scarves and a pretend house, and the people in the house run from the wind, and then all of a sudden she stood in front of like an air purifier, and
I was gonna say
it was windy, and she's like, oh, the wind's in here. I was like, yeah, look how brave and strong you are, you didn't go nowhere. She's like, oh, like she had like that aha moment. And I said,
Yep.
yeah, you remember that next time you're outside, you don't take it from that wind, you show that wind who you are. And she was like, yeah. I had to get an update. That was only Saturday, but or maybe it was yesterday. It was actually yesterday. So I had to get an update and see how the wind was today. But
and that's a hard one to escape. That's like a hard concept to understand.
Weather's big.
Like as an adult, we don't even have all the answers.
Yeah.
I think that's what scares me the most. Like as Maxwell gets older, his questions are going to get bigger. And they're going to be around what my questions are too.
That's okay. And you have to wonder with him, right? Just be the wanderer with him. Like, oh, I don't know. Let's see if we can figure that out.
Between that and math, like I'm in a lot of trouble. Well, thank you so much for chatting today. How can people contact you if they have more questions about what we talked about today, or general like OT questions or inquiries?
Sure. So you can find me in a number of different places. Like I said, I work for the Rebecca School, so you can find me on their website, and my email there is tortora@rebeccaschool.org. You can also find me on the ICDL website because I am one of their training leaders. And the ICDL website is kind of cool because it has a DIR rectory. So if you type in a certain area, New York City, tri-state area, you get me and Toni, and you can find both of our contact informations on there.
The tones.
And the two tones, that's what one of our students used to call us. And yeah, that's probably the easiest ways to find me, those two places.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.